Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone. This is our weekly Zoom meeting number 49. With Sandy Shacklady-White, who is our expert in special education. And so she and I will be having a conversation about the upcoming winter holidays. And we all kind of need to settle ourselves when we think about those coming up, you know? It's like, really? This just happened. This is happening now? Oh no. So I'm not ready. So I want to go back to a practice that I know we've done before, but it's a really useful practice in times where things are starting to roll along and maybe be a little faster than we'd like. So this is the practice of the soles of the feet, and I'll walk you through it. It's easy to learn. So the first thing we do is we check in with ourselves to see how it is that we're feeling. So you can do this anytime, anywhere. It's not necessary to be sitting down and closing your eyes and putting your feet squarely on the floor, anything like that. Just check into how it is in your body right now. Are there places where there's tightness? Are there places where there's softness? How's your breathing? Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it deep? Shallow? What's going on there? Some people might even notice their heartbeat. Is it faster? Slow? What's going on? And then check in with how it is in your mind, in that place where we think. So noticing what the thoughts are like. I think of it as the weather of the mind, right? Is it sunny? Is it cloudy? Is there a storm brewing? Just noticing what it's like. And maybe noticing if there's an emotion that's here. Is there an emotion that's come for a visit? And you could even name that for yourself. And so now you could bring all of your attention to the soles of your feet. Just feeling your feet wherever they are, feeling the soles wherever they are. Feet may be up in the air, but you can still feel maybe your socks, maybe the insole of your shoe. Maybe you just feel air. You're noticing what you're feeling on the soles of your feet. And you could be a little bit specific with it. So, what's it like on your heels? What do you feel there? What do you feel on the outside edges of your feet? What do you feel inside the arches? How is it in the balls of your feet? Maybe on the outside, maybe even on the inside. So many bones come together there where your toes bend, and you could feel your toes. And you could even wiggle your toes if you'd like, just to get in touch with each individual toe. And then letting your attention go to the whole of the soles of your feet, from the toes all the way back to the heels. Just feeling how it is. And then you could expand that to the sides of your feet and the tops of your feet. And you could feel how it is in your whole body. So maybe there's tightness in places. Maybe there's softness in places. Maybe they're different places than when we started. And noticing how it is in your mind, in the thought space there. And maybe there's an emotion. Maybe not. Maybe you don't have something that you would name. It's just, this is how I feel right now. All of it is perfect. All of it is fine. Because we just checked in to see how we are. It's good to start from knowing how you are. So if you've had your eyes closed, you could open them. If you've been leaning away from your screen or wherever you are, you could lean back in again. And, so we are recording this, so I can't ask everyone how they are, but I can ask Sandy. So, Sandy, what did you find out when you checked in?
Oh, I found out that my feet were really tense.
Hmm.
I noticed the toes were curled and there just was a lot of tension in the feet. And listening to your words, I was able to just sort of relax them a little bit. And then I started to move up the body and noticed there was tension in other places. And it becoming aware of that allowed me to make myself be a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more at ease.
Yeah, yeah. It's really good for us to know what's going on. And I kind of feel like that's a theme for our conversation today because, as we're looking at kids and the various holidays coming up, whichever ones we celebrate doesn't matter because
Mhm.
they're all going on at the same time and
Mhm.
they're all sort of out there in our world stirring things up. uh,
That's for sure.
stirring up stirring up everybody's mind. So to even check in like this occasionally is a great thing. And when everything goes up in the air, it's now the holiday season, everything's flying around all over the place. This can be really difficult for kids.
Hmm.
And maybe even a little more difficult for kids, sort of involved in the special ed world. So I'm wondering what kind of things, we can do to help with that.
Absolutely. There are lots of things that we can do and it good for all kids. And even if the certain kids are not celebrating specific holidays that others are, they're still going to be in the throes of it all. And it's going to be
Yeah, this is the
disruptive
thing.
regardless,
Yeah.
unless they're living in a cocoon somewhere. But
Yeah.
we're exposed to all of the changes going on around us and maybe in the family structure. So one of the biggest things that I always recommend is try to, it seems to be like a no-brainer, but it's always important to try to keep your schedule, your routines as much as possible the same. And if there's going to be a change, and you know there's going to be a change coming, work with your child with what's going to possibly be changing in advance. That big heads up, predicting what might be happening. Um, Maybe
Yeah.
it's going to visit somebody, and getting the child or the youth prepared for that visit, wherever that may be.
Yeah.
And that could be sitting down. Maybe you're going to go to a relative you haven't seen since last Christmas or the last Hanukkah, and you can talk about, oh, we're going to go see Aunt Sally and Uncle Jimmy, and we're going to have to take a plane ride, and preparing each step of the way in advance so that they start to understand what could be coming, and reminding them who Aunt Sally and Uncle Jimmy are because they may or may not remember if dependent on their age. And um, it may be making sure that they understand the process of going to take a plane ride. I have learned that there is a program through a lot of the airlines in the United States
Hmm.
called the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Lanyard Program. And you can get from Philadelphia Airport an actual lanyard that has an ID tag on it. You have to write on it, but it indicates with a lot of sunflower images that the child is someone with a disability, because not all of our children have visible disabilities,
Yeah.
such as a youth that's in a wheelchair or using a walking cane due to being vision impaired. But you can get these lanyards for free at Philadelphia Airport at the information desk, and they also have them for the caregivers. And there is a website actually for obtaining more different types of lanyards. You can get a baseball cap, so different ways of identifying the person as somebody living with a disability. And that way, the airlines would know they may need to treat somebody with a little bit more
Hmm.
gentleness and patience.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And you can even prepare your kiddos with videos on YouTube about the child's first plane ride, and see what it's like. It walks you through it. Um, Incorporating social stories. If you're not familiar with what social stories are, that's pretty much just like an outline of um, what to expect. And writing a little story. It can be very simple, breaking it down step by step. Um, or it could be as simple as, okay, we're going to get up at 7 a.m. We're going to have our breakfast and maybe the hygiene routine. And then we're around 10 o'clock, we're going to get in the car to go to wherever, and just breaking it down and reminding the child of who they're going to go see, what might be going to occur there. Even if they've done it before, they may not remember, because it's very possible that there's going to be a lot of heightened anxiety and nervousness
Mhm.
for the
Yeah.
child that
Yeah.
needs to be worked through, and just to ease that. And I know I have also familiar with people that often pack in their car or in their luggage if you're going away for a while, or having a bag of toys. Might be certain fidget toys that child likes, some of those little poppy things or the fidget swirly things. A favorite stuffed animal could be something that helps with reducing that anxiety and possible angst and nervousness. And just have that little bag of tricks ready and available to the
Yeah.
youth so they can access that. And hopefully they've learned how to access that, um, and have been taught how to use them and how to self-regulate. And even what you just did with us, the soles of the feet,
Yeah.
can do that, as you said, anywhere. It could be sitting in the car, or sitting on the plane or the train, or even if it's sitting at grandma's house. And the big thing would be maybe it's cueing your child about soles of your feet,
Yeah.
teaching them how to respond to that, and then they can dig into that and start to pay attention to what their body is manifesting, so that they can be helped with self-regulating. That awareness, as you were saying, it's critical. You got to have that first in order to self-regulate.
Yeah, I mean, this is the basic program that we're selling, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
notice what's happening and then figure out how to work with what you're
Mm-hmm.
noticing. And then if it has to go on for a long time, having some strategies around that. And you're really talking about that. So my strategy, because it's going to be a 3 hour plane ride or whatever, is I'm gonna play with my
Yeah.
stickers or whatever, or I'm gonna watch something on, the tube there that they have for
Mm-hmm.
you and that kind of thing. And so that's gonna get me through. And yeah, so
Yeah, that those things would help. And also when you're actually with the people that you're getting together with, it's preparing in advance what kind of conversations might be. May seem silly,
mm,
but you may have to practice please and thank you before going on a trip to visit other relatives. Or it may be even having a little role play of getting a gift that maybe you don't really like, but you don't let them know that,
right, yeah,
I
yeah,
remember doing that when I was teaching middle school students. Every year I would do a little scenario of putting a pair of socks in a box, and we would just practice. here's a gift, nice little gift, and they open it up and instead of going, oh, it's just socks. No, it's like, wow, it sucks. Thank you for being so kind and thoughtful for me. Just practicing those niceties, the manners, um, and walking students through your children through that before you get into those possibly highly predictable situations.
Mhm.
Can't predict it all, but if there are certain traditions that go on every year when you go visit certain people, let's bring that to the forefront and remind our youth about what that might look like and how they can respond. And it may even be that you need to prepare the family you're going to visit in advance, talking to
Mhm.
them
Yeah.
about whatever situation might be of concern as you're going to go visit them in time for the holidays. Um, so talking to them, it might be about the noise level. And is there a safe place to go in that home that you're going to visit? So
Yeah.
that if a child needs to get away from all the hustle and bustle, they have a place to go. Maybe it's somebody's home office or in a sunroom or a mud room even, and maybe have additional items that are of interest to the child that they can access to help them self-regulate and just decompress from being overwhelmed by all the noise, the chaos, the change, and maybe even foods and drinks.
Yes.
Preparing
Yeah.
that because a lot of us have preferences over foods, and you're not sure what you're going to get when you go visit somebody. So maybe it's taking a little lunch bag of food preferences that your child has, and maybe asking the host that you're going to go visit what maybe they could also have included. So in that way, the child will feel included and not like, oh, little Johnny, he needs his special bag. That's just going to make him feel more out of sorts, and that's not what you
Right.
want. But
Yeah.
you may want to have that just in case. Or the hosts they just take the food out of the lunch bag and put it in a certain spot on the buffet table, and that's little Johnny's foods. And just being aware of those things in advance so that when you get there, you're not going to have a situation where your child is going to perhaps have some sort of a behavioral challenge that comes that you need to navigate it. And you may have that anyway. And having that safe place to
Yeah.
go in that home or wherever you're
Yeah.
going would be really huge, along with that bag of calming items.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's kind of, we've been talking about taking the child out of their usual place and taking them
Mhm.
somewhere else. But the holidays are also an invasion of your own space.
Yes,
So I'm sort of wondering about that, and it sounds like a lot of the same strategies would apply, but it's a little bit different too to
yes.
to have suddenly eight other people or 10 other people in your house.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like you're in my turf, and
Yeah,
that can be very disruptive. It's disruptive regardless, and it can
for
be
everybody.
extremely
Yeah,
disruptive for
yeah,
youth with different abilities or even any kids. But suddenly there's an invasion, as you're saying, and
yeah.
again, a lot of preparing in advance. One of the biggest things that can be done is having your child be part of those decisions in advance of how we're going to
Mm,
decorate. Have them help with however it's appropriate, decorating whatever your holiday decorations are and getting them involved with that. Let them have choices. And then that way they feel more in control of what's going to happen. And while you're doing that decorating, you might be talking about, well, Aunt Sally's going to be coming in 2 days. Do you remember Aunt Sally? And talking about whoever the visitors are going to be in advance. And it could also be preparing the child for those relatives or friends of the family who maybe like to give a big hug and a kiss on the cheek. And maybe your child, no, not for me.
mhm.
So you might be needing to prepare the child. Remember that Aunt Sally may want to give you a hug. What can you do to show her that you maybe are not quite accepting of that it's disruptive to you? And it also can be you as the caregiver reminding Aunt Sally that little Johnny doesn't want to be hugged and kissed.
Yeah.
But you can't always predict what's going to happen. She may do that anyway, or somebody else might that you don't
Right.
expect. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
working with your child and saying what would be a polite way to tell them that you don't want to be hugged or kissed. And maybe it is teaching them how to do a high five or a fist bump. So there is that kind of contact to acknowledge the family member, but just in a different way and something that's less triggering for the youth, yet allows the adult to feel like they are making an emotional connection because that's really what that's all about. But
Yeah.
that can be so hard for so many kids.
Yeah.
So fist bumps, high fives, or a handshake, whatever works, or maybe it's just thumbs up if they don't want any touch, just a thumbs up or hi. Glad to see you, and practicing those
Yeah.
basic manners. Because if something happens that is more triggering, they're going to forget all of those things. So we need to be practicing and making it more of part of a repertoire at any time of year, but especially at the holidays.
Yeah, that's really it, isn't it? Is to be able to go into those situations in as calm a fashion as
Hmm.
you can. So yeah, so I'm sort of
Absolutely.
that was one of the reasons that I really wanted to do the soles of the feet with everybody. I mean, to do that before everybody comes through the door, just get
Yeah.
the kids, the adults, carers, parents, and just sit down, check in, see how you are, see if spending some time paying attention to your feet
Yeah.
can bring
Yes.
you, a couple notches down because you're going to go a couple notches up when
For sure.
when everybody comes in the door. So yeah,
Yeah, and it's using the, as you were saying, just the soles of the feet. You can be doing it right there, or if you have a safe place in your home for your child to go to, whether
yeah,
it's their bedroom or wherever in the house, just to kind of pull it back together. And maybe it is one of the adults, a trusting adult can go with them and do it too, because face it, us grown-ups, we get overwhelmed too by all of the noise and hubbub and the conversation. So,
yeah,
maybe somebody go with little Johnny to that special room to just take 5 minutes. It may just be all that they need to kind of get that tension out and then re-enter the family gathering.
yeah. So one of the other things that I'm thinking about is we're talking about the holiday itself, the
Hmm.
day of, when people come in, when all this stuff happens. And the experience of the holidays is school's out.
Yes.
And so I've lost some structure here. I've
Hmm.
lost some of the ways that I navigate my world, I know that at noon we have lunch. And now that's not necessarily what's going to happen, and I'm not even necessarily, and I'm not where I want to be. I not want to be, but
I
where I
feel to be.
normally would be, where I
Yeah.
feel like this is a regular thing. So I'm kind of wondering how we navigate that with the
And
kids.
that's tough.
That,
That's another tough one. Anytime there's a break in school routine and
yeah,
days off, it can be very disruptive. And I think, again, it goes back to keeping it as structured as possible. It may mean getting up at the same time, or navigate that with your child as to what would be an appropriate time to get up and planning it again in advance. You know, the week or so before the actual holiday break begins. It's you've and using a calendar or other visual supports. Maybe if you use advent calendars, that's a nice way to kind of take a look at, oh, here's December 1st, and this is the last day of school, whether it's the 22nd, 23rd, whatever it may be, and using that as a countdown and talking about, oh, remember what's going to be happening. You won't have school come the 23rd of December. Let's talk about that. Do you, how about we still get up at 7 a.m. and we'll have breakfast together? But then what do you choose to do? And given the child the opportunity to make choices, you may need to offer two or three different choices, no more than five, I would say, depending on your child. And um, and what their days are like, but it's providing that ability to give them choice and their voice. Voice and choice are so important to all of us. It allows your youth to have a sense of control over their days and their schedule. So if you talk with them as you use that advent calendar or whatever other visual um, cues you might be using to structure, like a calendar of some type, or using a whiteboard on your refrigerator and have something drawn there and check it off with your child, and just preparing what's possibly coming. And let them choose what they're going to be having for their meals and what are they going to do. And maybe because of it being the holiday season, you are decorating the house or outside the house or going somewhere else to help with that kind of thing, and letting them have choice of how to do that. And maybe they don't want to be part of it. That would could
Mhm.
possibly be a choice too.
Yeah.
But then what do the child, think that maybe would be better to do? And that may mean having a conversation and offering different alternatives to what everybody else might be doing, because it just may be too much for some of our kiddos to handle. It can be extremely overwhelming. Um, so it's starting that, laying that groundwork for what's coming a week or two in advance, and using those visuals and discussion. And it's just discussions. It's not, doesn't have to be, this is what you have to do. It's like, well, remember Aunt Sally, and you just talk about it like you're having a general conversation, and build in there that opportunity for the child to speak what they're thinking and ways that they feel that they can manage, so that they feel part of the holiday gathering and not
Yeah.
be, as they often probably feel, kind of a misfit or left out in some ways. And that's not what the holidays are about. The holidays are
Yeah.
about being together
Right.
as a community and a family. And family doesn't need to be the blood relatives. It can be family friends, because they're part of your family too. And the pets, and helping with all of that thoughtfulness, and so that they feel like they truly belong as part of that gathering as you're preparing for it and part of the season, whatever it is that you're celebrating or not celebrating.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess one other thing that's rumbling around in my mind about this, is everybody's expectations for how things are going to be. And the holidays, whichever ones, are sort of filled with expectations of how we're all going to be together and how it's going to feel and how it's going to look, and the traditions that we've built up. And sometimes there's too many layers. I've
Yes,
kind of
that is
found
so
that
true.
myself, so I'm
Yeah.
I'm wondering how we work with that, with our own, as carers and parents. We're also just people who want to have a good time in the holidays, and
Mhm.
how do we work with that for ourselves?
Yeah, that can be tough. And it's doing things like soles of the feet, and reminding ourselves that it's okay to just take a break once in a while, and doing your own self-care. It might be taking a walk, and it can be a walk by yourself, or taking your child with you after that walk, and just soaking up that sunshine and nature, and just taking a break from the hustle and bustle of it all, because it can be so overwhelming. There's usually all these expectations that everything has to be perfectly right, and
Yeah, that's
that's
what I'm thinking.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's not going to be. And I really think if you talk with your child about, it's just not going to be as perfect as we all think. So let's talk about that. What might be a way to navigate those things, such as taking a break from, whatever the traditions are, um, temporarily, like if you're planning this big meal, somehow, how can we have our children be involved with that, so that it helps you, as well as it helps the child feel like they're belonging and contributing to this family tradition
uh,
that's so important. Um, but anything like that, it's just keeping an eye on your own wellness. And I was thinking about the other day. I was with somebody who had planned all kinds of things for the upcoming holidays. And I looked at her and I said, it's not about all the food you have and all the fun and games that you have. It's about being together. Whatever holiday you're celebrating or not, when there's a family gathering, it's to be together. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And so what if you forgot to cook the mashed potatoes or whatever. It's no big deal. And if you can't get to doing the cookie baking this year, don't worry about it. And if you practice that, letting go of that stress, your child then is not going to feel that stress because we all know our kids
Ah,
feel how we are. So
yeah.
we've got to self-regulate as well.
And so I think that's a really great point for us to remember is that the kids don't necessarily know what we're letting go of, and we could express it.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
We could say, we have been doing this for several years now, and I just think it's too much this year.
Hmm.
Let's make a choice that we'll do
Yes.
for next year, but for this year, no, we're not going to do that, and
Yeah,
just
let it go.
ratchet everything down for them.
Yeah.
We don't
It's
have to do all of it every time.
right. And
Yeah,
that's what becomes overwhelming and it kind of ruins the reason for the season.
yeah, yeah.
It's supposed to be a time of love and friendship and showing gratitude for sure, and
Yeah.
thinking along those lines, it's talking to your child about gratitude and what are you grateful for and having those little conversations so that when the gatherings actually happen or wherever you end up going is talking about being grateful for being with family or whatever it is that they're grateful for so that they realize that other people like to know that you're grateful for them being in part of your life or for the gift that they gave you and practicing that could be role play too. And definitely acknowledging emotions. That's so key that you were touching on there is we have to acknowledge our own emotions, but we also need to acknowledge our kiddos' emotions
Yeah.
and talk about them and letting them know that it's okay to feel however they're feeling and how can we work through that if it's a feeling that's not such a great feeling? So then how do we work through that? And again, constantly giving options for your child to say what might work for them because they only know themselves and we can just kind of take a guess at that. They need to have that sense of control um, and knowing that they also have support from you as the adult. That's so important.
Yeah.
So the other thinking about emotions is, and I don't know if you're going to lead into it, but there could also be a sense of sadness and grief around the holidays.
There sure can. Yeah.
Yeah, that can be hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody else is having a happy time and smiling and laughing, and maybe
Yeah.
you or your child are not because you've some type of loss, whether it was loss through a death or the loss of somebody who up and moved far away and you won't see them this year. Um, we need to acknowledge that and help them. And by keeping some of those traditions that you've always had around that person who has either moved or has been
Mm.
who has
Yeah.
passed, keeping them in place. And again, having the child part of that tradition and thinking of that person that has been lost with loving kindness and just knowing that they were part of the family and now they're not for whatever reason. And so keeping those traditions in place and maybe even having a little part of the house where you just maybe there was a special ornament that was Uncle Ralph's and he has passed on and maybe having the child use that ornament to put in a special place on the tree or if it's at Hanukkah maybe there's some kind of tradition there to honor those that are no longer with us in some way because they're hard feelings to work through and our kids need to know that we're hurting too and how can we
Yes.
support each other.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's so important is that we don't put on the mask.
Right.
Here's my holiday mask, and we're happy all the time. And
Yeah.
It's that whole thing. I think I said expectations,
Yes.
like maybe 20 minutes ago. And it's really, yeah, there's so many expectations.
Hmm. Yeah, and everything, as you were saying, everybody expects you to be happy-go-lucky and big smiles on the face. But there are times where it's not so happy. And if we put on that mask, then those feelings are just kind of dwelling in you and they can cause some trouble there, and especially with our youth, that they have trouble with self-regulation and they're seeing everybody's being so happy, but they're feeling sad because maybe they lost a loved one to death, or maybe even a beloved pet that they've
Yeah,
lost. And here it is, the holiday seasons, and those people or those pets are not there. And
yeah.
and that's when things could start to possibly go wrong. Something might easily trigger the child, and then you might have some behavioral challenges manifesting themselves. And so we need to acknowledge if they're feeling sad, just like we need to acknowledge when we're feeling sad.
And yeah, I mean, this is the thing, and this takes me back right into what we're working with in learning life skills together. It's that the
Mm,
parents and carers are doing these things for themselves. They're modeling it. So yeah,
right.
it just struck me that we don't have Uncle Ralph with us, and that's a sad note here.
Yes.
You know, what can we
Yeah.
do? What can we do to, sort of honor that fact, and go off with that, so that
Hmm.
we're showing that that it's important to understand your own
Right.
emotions and be able to work with them. So yeah,
Yeah, because those are tough emotions.
they indeed
Definitely.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
I mean,
tough.
the holidays are full of joy and happiness
Hmm.
and everything else too. And
Yeah.
yeah, we forget that and sort of wonder why we're having the experience that we're having. You know,
Yes.
so,
Yes.
so it sort of brings me back around to that idea of we need to know what's going on with us. We need to be
Always.
able
Yeah.
to check in, sort of, and do that. So Sandy, this has been wonderful.
Absolutely. Always.
We put a lot of stuff out there. I'm sure
Yes.
that people who have been listening are probably reeling at this point with all the great information. And I would love um, to post in the notes for this
Hmm.
episode um, the information about the um, sunflower lanyards, that
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
stuff. So if you could help me get that together, that would be great, and we'll put it up on the website,
Absolutely.
and on Spotify, so that people can make those connections.
And some of the websites that have some other good information, I will send to you as well.
Yeah.
From Child Mind Institute is one of them, and A Haven, which is the free grief counseling up in Exton, PA. There are resources with them too, and A Haven deals with grief for youth and their families, and it's a free service. So I will put something there because they have some
Terrific.
resources.
Yeah.
They have resources on their website about the holidays and grief.
Yeah. Wow. So richer and richer we are in
Absolutely, and our
understanding things
knowledge.
and having resources. So yeah. So I'd kind of like to end the way we began, with the soles of the feet. Maybe it'll help people remember the three parts to it,
Yes.
and and maybe we'll figure out how we feel after hearing all of this. So you can close your eyes or not. It doesn't matter. You can do this anytime, anywhere, right? You check into how it feels in your body. What's going on? Maybe if this has been a lot, there's kind of a rushing around feeling inside your body. Right? Notice how it is for you right now. Maybe your breathing tells you something. Is it fast or slow? Maybe your heart rate is up. Or maybe it's down because you got some answers. And noticing what it's like in your mind. That weather in your mind, is it swirling? Is it a tornado? Is it a sunshiny day? What's it like in? And the same thing with emotion. So, is there an emotion that's here right now that you recognize and that has a name? And so you can even say its name silently to yourself. And then bringing all of your attention into the soles of your feet. Just getting connected with yourself. Feeling your heels. Maybe they're pressing down. Maybe there's air flowing over. Who knows? Feeling the instep, the arch of the foot, and the outside edge. Maybe your shoes help point all that out for you. Feeling the balls of your feet and your toes. And then being in touch with all of that territory of the soles of your feet from your toes all the way down to your heels. Feeling your sides of your feet, tops of your feet, maybe held by socks, maybe squeezed by shoes. And then checking in. How is it in your body now? What do you notice? That flow of energy, less or more? What do you find there? How's your breathing? Maybe how's your heart rate? And what's your mind like? What's the weather? Just checking in. It's okay, whatever way it is, because whatever way it is, we can work with it. That's the secret here, is that there's not a wrong way of feeling, not a wrong way of being. There's just, how am I going to work with that? And maybe there's an emotion. And if you know its name, you could say it. And so you're actually using another technique called name it to tame it. And maybe you notice as you say, oh, okay, that's sadness. That's what came up. Okay. That's a step on the way to working with it. And you could, if your eyes are closed, open them up. And now, because we went through this, you know how you are.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
And it
Mhm.
only took, what, a couple minutes?
Yeah. I mean, 3 minutes tops. So
Yes.
you check in to how things are with you. You pay attention to the soles of your feet, which you can do for as long as you'd like. I mean, sometimes it's good to get really into it and just be with the soles of your feet and nothing else. And then you come back. How am I now? What's going on? And then off we go into the world because we know what we need to work with.
Right.
Right? And I think that's kind of the key to all of this. You know, you were talking about letting the kids know in advance what's going to happen. Here's what you need to work with, right? You
Yes.
know, when you check into how you're feeling, yeah, same thing. So, you know, I want to thank you, Sandy, for all that you have brought us, and look forward to talking with you at the next sort of big change, which,
Yes.
yeah, we
That's,
keep having them. We
yes.
start
Well, that
school,
is
then we
true.
stop
Yes.
school, then we start it up again. So hey, there we
It's
are.
always a pleasure. If I
Yeah.
get anything to help our adults help our kiddos, it's so important.
Okay. Well, I think it's probably reasonable to wish everyone happy, sad, balanced holidays.
Yes,
All
yes.
right.